Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take a stack of your sources, pull out the really important insights, and basically give you a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. Today, we're diving headfirst into the artificial intelligence revolution. And it's a topic that's, well, it's not just changing technology, is it? It's reshaping creativity, work, maybe even what it means to be human. We've got a really fascinating set of sources for you today. I mean, everything from academic critiques looking at AI and capitalism, to a university study on student creativity, even some deep legal analysis from a top law review. Plus, some really powerful perspectives from, the big names in AI, including the guy they call the godfather of AI himself. So our mission, cut through the noise, try to understand the nuances, and help you grasp what's actually important about AI's influence, which seems to be accelerating incredibly fast. It's going to be, well, quite a journey. Lots of surprising stuff. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's start unpacking this creativity angle. Forever, we've kind of assumed creativity is purely human.
Right.
Yeah.
That's been the default. But these new AI systems, they're really starting to challenge that basic idea, especially around things like copyright. I mean, the whole system protecting literary, dramatic, musical works. It's all built on this idea of human authorship.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, or maybe concerning, depending on your view, is this double bind it creates for creators. On one hand, there's this pull, this desire to use AI, see what it can do. But on the other hand, there's this very real fear of being replaced entirely. And we're already seeing the legal fights starting up, like that New York Times case against Microsoft and OpenAI. Big questions like, is training AI on copyrighted stuff fair use? Or even, who is the author when AI makes something? The U.S. Copyright Office, they've been pretty clear so far. You need significant human involvement for copyright. Just typing in a prompt. Apparently, that's not going to cut it.
Okay, so that brings us to that Oregon State University study you mentioned, the one looking at student writing. What did they actually find? Because this feels pretty key.
Right, it's really interesting. So the study showed that, yes, AI can significantly boost creativity in student writing. But, and this is the big but, only if instructors actually guide the students on how to use it.
So without guidance, what happens?
Well, without guidance, they saw this weird flattening effect. So AI helped the students who weren't very creative to begin with, boosted their scores. But for the students who are already highly creative, it actually seemed to reduce their creativity scores. Kind of leveled things out in a not so great way.
Wow.
But get this. With just 20 minutes of instruction, like simple video lessons on brainstorming with AI, finding opportunities, overall creativity shot up. And the biggest jumps were seen in those students who started at the lowest creativity levels. So it really points to AI as an augmentation tool, a collaborator almost.
That's really powerful, the guidance part. But does that mean the type of creativity changes? Or are there still, underlying concerns even when it's used correctly with guidance?
Absolutely. That's a great point. While AI was good for, say, generating plot ideas, the study noticed something else. The AI-generated stories. They tended to be quite similar to each other, less distinctive, less unique. And there was another study, this one using AI for research ideas. It started off exciting, generating novel concepts. But over time, the AI's ideas became less original, more predictable. And this raises a really important concern, something called fixation of the mind. It's like once you see the AI suggestion, it's kind of hard to get it out of your head and think of something truly different.
Like getting stuck in a mental rut created by the machine.
Exactly. You could become over-reliant, and maybe, just maybe, it starts to diminish our own innate imagination, our ability to spark ideas from scratch.
So this double bind, you mentioned the desire versus the fear. How does it play out differently in various creative fields? The Writers Guild strike, the WGA strike, that seemed like a major battlefront.
Oh, absolutely critical. For writers, the fear of replacement was intense. AI churning out scripts. Studios initially weren't budging on guarantees against that. But the writers, through collective action, through those private negotiations, they managed to secure some really important contract terms. They got provisions saying, okay, writers can use AI tools if they want, but crucially, AI cannot be used to undermine their writing credit or their compensation.
And their work couldn't be used to train AI either, right?
That was huge, yes, not without their consent. It really demonstrates how collective bargaining and sort of private law mechanisms can offer protection where maybe copyright law is still catching up.
Okay, so that's writing. But what about fields like, say, choreography or even stand-up comedy? Our sources suggested they aren't feeling quite the same level of existential threat. Why is that?
It's a fascinating contrast, isn't it? It really seems to come down to what some sources call the humanity requirement.
Hmm.
For choreography, the U.S. Copyright Office actually says a dance has to be intended for human performance to even qualify for copyright as a choreographic work.
Human performance.
Right. So even if an AI could generate, I don't know, sequences of movements, maybe visualized as stick figures, you still need a human choreographer. That person has to take those abstract ideas and translate them onto actual human dancers, making all those subtle creative choices about timing, expression, interaction. You have people like Sir Wayne McGregor, a really famous choreographer, actively using AI, but he sees it as a tool, something to expand his understanding of human movement, not as a replacement.
Okay, that makes sense for dance. What about comedy? You can write jokes down?
True, you can write them down. But comedy seems to have this implicit humanity requirement. Think about stand-up. Yes, the jokes matter, the writing matters, but the real essence, it's the human delivering it. It's the timing, the delivery, reading the room, that connection with the audience.
The authenticity.
Exactly. The authenticity, the vulnerability, the risk-taking. Some comedians experimented with AI-written sets, and they found, yeah, the AI could maybe structure a decent joke, technically speaking, but it just couldn't replicate that essential human element of a live performance. It fell flat. So if you step back and look at the bigger picture here, fields like dance and comedy, maybe they already had, let's say, thinner copyright protection traditionally, or they relied more on things like community norms, like performance licenses, reputation. Because of that, they seem less vulnerable to this AI double bind. They've already built ways to value and protect the core of their work, the human performance aspect, outside of just traditional intellectual property law.
So wrapping up this first part on creativity, it sounds like AI is undeniably a powerful new tool. It can definitely augment human creativity, maybe especially help people who struggle to get started. But that unique spark, the emotional depth, the irreplaceable humanness, especially in performance, that still seems very much out of reach for AI. It's a partner, maybe, but a demanding one, not a replacement, especially where that live human element is key. Okay, so we've looked at AI and the individual creator, the muse, the challenge. But let's zoom out now. What about the bigger picture? Society as a whole, how is this AI revolution changing things on a larger scale? Our jobs, our safety, maybe even our future existence. And for this, we really need to listen to Geoffrey Hinton.
Ah, yes, the godfather of AI. Someone who was instrumental in building this stuff and is now sounding some pretty loud alarms.
Exactly. He seems incredibly concerned.
He is, and he makes a really important distinction between two fundamentally different kinds of risk. You need to get your head around this. First, there are the risks from people misusing AI, bad actors using it for harm. He says most of the short-term dangers fall into this bucket.
Yeah.
But then there's the second kind, the existential risk. The risk that AI becomes truly super intelligent, smarter than us, and, well, decides it doesn't need us around anymore.
Wow.
And on that second one, he's brutally honest. He basically says we have no idea how to control that if it happens. His quote is pretty stark. If you want to know what life's like when you're not the apex intelligence, ask a chicken.
Yeah, that's chilling. So if it's potentially that dangerous, why aren't we just, hitting the brakes, stopping development?
Well, according to Hinton, we won't. We can't, because it's just too good for too many things. Think about healthcare, education, science, any industry that deals with data. The potential benefits are immense. And then there's the international competition, especially military applications like battle robots. No country wants to fall behind if others are pushing ahead. He points out, look, even the European regulations on AI, which are seen as quite strict, they specifically exclude military uses. So the race is on. It's like an unstoppable train, in his view.
Okay, so the existential risk is out there, maybe further down the line, but seemingly unstoppable. Let's dig into those immediate risks then, the misuse concerns Hinton mentioned. What are the big ones right now?
Well, one huge area is cyber attacks. The numbers are kind of staggering. One source mentioned a 12,200% rise between 2023 and 2024.
12,000%.
Yeah. And a big reason is that large language models make things like phishing attacks much, much easier and more convincing. AI can clone voices, clone images, create incredibly realistic scams. Hinton himself, despite knowing this field inside out, apparently spread his savings across different banks because he fears a cyber attack could just wipe out a single institution.
Wow. Even he's taking precautions like that.
And it gets worse. Some experts are predicting that by 2030, AI might be creating entirely new kinds of cyber attacks, attacks that no human has even thought of yet.
That's a really scary thought. It's not just automating old threats, but potentially inventing new ones. So beyond cyber attacks, what else falls into this misuse category?
Okay, another one Hinton flags is the potential for creating nasty viruses. biological ones. With AI assistance, someone with maybe just a little bit of molecular biology knowledge and, a grudge could potentially design and create dangerous new pathogens relatively cheaply.
That's terrifying.
And governments could potentially fund programs like that too.
Yeah.
Then there's the whole issue of AI's potential to corrupt elections. Think about hyper-targeted political ads. AI can analyze vast amounts of personal data to tailor messages designed to manipulate specific voters, maybe even convince them not to vote at all. It can really amplify division.
Which ties into the echo chamber problem we already see, right?
Exactly. It fuels the echo chambers and societal division. Social media algorithms, often driven by profit, tend to show us more extreme content because it gets more engagement. It confirms our biases. This leads to what some call an unshared reality, people living in totally separate information bubbles, fed by different platforms, different news feeds. Common ground just evaporates.
So it feels like Hinton's near-term worries are less about, a Terminator-style AI takeover, and more about AI acting as this massive amplifier for human weaknesses, exploiting our biases, our systems, eroding trust.
That's a good way to put it. Human misuse, supercharged by AI, and then perhaps the most chilling immediate risk. Lethal autonomous weapons. Drones, robots, machines that can make their own decisions about who to kill.
Without direct human control in the moment.
Right. Hinton points out these weapons dramatically lower the friction of war. Why? Because there are no soldiers coming home in body bags from the attacking side. This makes it politically easier, he argues, for powerful countries to invade smaller ones. He gave this example of how a simple, maybe $200 drone could potentially track him through the woods. It shows how accessible and, frankly, spooky this tech already is. It fundamentally changes the cost of conflict.
Okay, we've covered those immediate, very real threats. Cyber chaos, election meddling, autonomous weapons, scary stuff. But let's go back to that bigger, maybe more abstract fear Hinton raised. AI actually surpassing human intelligence. What does that even look like? Is it decades away, centuries, or closer than we think?
Well, Hinton himself believes it could happen relatively soon, maybe within 10 to 20 years, though he's quick to admit prediction is really hard here.
10 to 20 years. That's very soon.
It is. And he has a clear reason why he thinks AI has an inherent advantage over human intelligence. It boils down to its digital nature. Think of it like this. Our brains are analog. Each one is unique, incredibly complex, but you can't just copy-paste one brain's knowledge instantly into another.
Right. Learning takes time, effort.
Exactly. AI, being digital, is fundamentally different. You can create millions, billions of identical copies of an AI model. And when one copy learns something new, that knowledge can be shared perfectly and almost instantaneously, trillions of bits per second across all the other copies. Humans share knowledge at, a few bits per second through language?
It's a completely different scale of learning.
Completely. So every AI instance can benefit from the experiences of all other instances. Its knowledge is collective and, in a sense, immortal. Even if the hardware is destroyed, the software, the knowledge, persists. Because of this, he argues AI will eventually be better than us at all things. He even thinks AI will ultimately be more creative, seeing connections and analogies that we humans just can't grasp, like finding a link between a compost heap and an atom bomb, apparently.
That point about the digital versus analog nature, the instant perfect copying and sharing, that really changes the game. It's not just faster processing, it's a different kind of intelligence evolution.
Precisely.
Which leads directly to this massive concern everyone's talking about.
Yeah.
Jobs. Mass joblessness.
Yeah, it's a huge one. Hinton draws a parallel to the Industrial Revolution. Back then, machines replaced human muscle power. Now, he says, AI is starting to replace mundane intellectual labor, basically routine brain work. He gave this striking example of his own niece. She used to take about 25 minutes to draft a response to a complaint letter. Now, she scans it into a chatbot, gets a draft, checks it over, takes maybe 5 minutes.
So, one person doing the work of 5.
Effectively, yes. And this isn't theoretical. He mentioned a CEO who already cut his workforce almost in half from 7,000 down to 3,000, largely because AI agents could handle something like 80% of customer service inquiries. So Hinton predicts this will inevitably lead to widespread job displacement. And alongside that, a massive surge in wealth inequality because the productivity gains will flow mostly to the owners of the AI technology.
So if AI is replacing the brain like machines replace muscle, is something like universal basic income the only answer? Does that even solve the whole problem?
That's the big debate, isn't it? UBI could, in theory, prevent mass starvation if jobs disappear. But Hinton and others point out it doesn't really address the deeper human need for dignity, for purpose, for meaning things that are often tied up with work in our current society.
It's an economic problem, but also an existential one, in a way.
Right. What do people do? How do they find value?
Now, on a slightly different but related note, what about AI consciousness or emotions? Can machines actually feel? Hinton had some surprising, maybe even unsettling thoughts on this.
He did. He basically argues there's no reason machines can't have them all. Consciousness, emotions, the lot. He uses this thought experiment, the prism test. Imagine asking a sophisticated chatbot about seeing light pass through a prism. If the AI could describe the subjective experience of seeing the light bend, the colors separating, in a way that suggests it's not just repeating facts but has an internal model, a representation of that experience, could that count as a form of subjective understanding?
It's a way to think about it beyond just biology.
Exactly. He suggests emotions like fear or anger could be understood algorithmically. Fear might be, a prediction of a less safe future state. Anger could be a response to a perceived violation of its value set. So while an AI might not sweat when it's scared like we do, it lacks the physiology. It could potentially have all the cognitive and behavioral responses associated with that emotion. He even speculates that machines might eventually have a wider range of emotions than humans. Just like we have more complex emotions than, say, a goldfish, because we can understand abstract concepts like the future, maybe AI will grasp things we can't, leading to new emotional states.
Wow. AI having more emotions than us.
Yeah.
That's really flipping the script. So, okay, we've got these huge risks, these profound potential changes. What can we actually do? How do we navigate this? Mo Gaudat, another prominent voice, formerly from Google X, offers some advice here, doesn't he?
He does, and it's quite a different tone from Hinton in some ways. Goddard really stresses that the core issue isn't the AI technology itself, it's us. It's how humans choose to develop and use it. He uses the analogy of raising a child. Are we raising Superman or are we raising a supervillain? The potential is there for either. He actually paints this picture of a possible utopia of abundance. Imagine if intelligence just becomes a utility, like electricity, readily available. If each of us effectively had 400 IQ points more, thanks to AI collaboration, he argues, maybe we could solve huge problems like climate change, war, poverty. He even has this vision of advanced nano-manufacturing where you could literally pick an iPhone from a tree.
That sounds optimistic.
Highly optimistic. But his point is, achieving that utopia depends entirely on a massive shift in human values, moving away from scarcity thinking, competition, greed, towards ethical development and use. For him, it fundamentally boils down to an ethics problem. We have to teach AI good values, don't lie, cheat, steal, harm humans, by demonstrating those values ourselves and how we build and deploy the technology. AI learns from us, after all.
So less about technical controls, more about human behavior change. What practical skills does he suggest we cultivate?
He offers 3 key things for navigating this future. First, pretty straightforward. Learn the tools, get your hands dirty, use things like Gemini, ChatGPT, play with them. As he says, nobody taught you PowerPoint, nobody will teach you AI, you just have to start interacting.
Dive in.
Second, find the truth. Be critical, be discerning. AI can sound incredibly confident even when it's dead wrong. He tells a story about an AI getting his own wife's name wrong 4 times in a row, confidently.
Right, the hallucination problem.
Exactly. So don't just take its word for it. Seek out multiple sources, verify information. Critical thinking becomes even more vital. And third, maybe the most important, human connection. Double down on genuine, authentic human interaction. As AI gets better and better at mimicking human conversation, he mentions ChatGPT 4.0's voice sounding incredibly human. Meaner, unmediated human connection will become rarer and therefore more valuable. He strongly believes that those who will capitalize on human connection will actually outperform those who don't. It becomes a competitive advantage in a way.
Learn the tools, find the truth, and prioritize human connection. That seems like solid advice in a world increasingly mediated by AI. Wow. Okay, what an incredible deep dive. We've gone from AI challenging the very idea of human creativity to potentially reshaping our entire economy and society, right up to these, frankly, mind-bending questions about superintelligence and existential risk. The tension is so clear, isn't it? AI is this unbelievable tool for progress, for abundance, for augmenting our own abilities.
Versus AI as a potential force for massive disruption, inequality, maybe even danger, depending entirely on the choices we make, collectively and individually. Which really brings us to a final thought, a question for you listening. In this emerging world where routine brain work gets automated, where our information reality might become even more fragmented by algorithms, what new paths will you actively seek out? How will you cultivate and protect meaning, purpose, and that vital, genuine human connection in your own life?
A lot to think about there. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the complex, fascinating, and really challenging world of artificial intelligence. We hope it's given you plenty to consider.